Welcome to my channel. Enjoy the content, and please like, comment, share and subscribe for more. In the bleak and forgotten realm of Eldoria, where hope had withered like autumn leaves caught in an endless storm, a dark monarch reigned with iron resolve and merciless ambition. King Malakar, a name whispered only in hushed, fearful tones, wielded power not as a tool of leadership but as a weapon of subjugation. His dominion stretched across valleys choked by ash and rivers that ran bitter with sorrow. The skies above Eldoria seemed perpetually overcast, not by clouds but by the heavy weight of grief, as if even the heavens mourned the suffering endured beneath them. Long ago, this land had thrived with music, festivals and proud traditions, but under Malakar's rule, joy had become a dangerous luxury. Seated atop a throne carved from obsidian and adorned with twisted relics of conquered enemies, Malakar presided over his court like a vulture among bones. His eyes, as lifeless as polished onyx, held no empathy, only the cold glint of calculated menace. His soul, if any trace remained, had long been consumed by an unquenchable thirst for dominance. From his high seat in the central keep of the citadel, he dictated law and punishment with a flick of the wrist or the narrowing of an eye. Mercy was a forgotten concept in his vocabulary, replaced by relentless decrees designed to drain the willpower of those beneath his heel. The very foundations of his citadel were a grotesque testament to his tyranny. Constructed from jagged stones and mortar mixed with the ashes of rebel dead, the fortress was a towering monument to fear itself. Its spires stabbed at the sky like accusing fingers, casting long, oppressive shadows over the dwindling homes below. Each chamber echoed with the distant wails of prisoners, and the cold corridors twisted like serpents through the structure, leading to dungeons that no soul ever returned from. Lanterns burned dim with greenish flame, emitting an eerie glow that made even the guards uneasy, though none dared voice their discomfort. Outside the castle's walls, misery reigned. The villagers, once a spirited people with laughter in their voices and pride in their work, had become husks of their former selves. Their eyes were hollow, their steps labored, and their voices barely above whispers. Every morning began with the tolling of the iron bell, signaling another day of forced labor and relentless taxation. Men worked in quarries until their hands bled. Women harvested barren fields under the gaze of watchful soldiers. Even the elderly were not spared, pressed into menial tasks to prove their continued worth to the crown. Every breath was a negotiation for survival. The burden of tribute crushed the very spirit of the people. Wheat, livestock, coin, whatever remained after their subsistence, was seized without hesitation. If a family failed to meet quotas, they were punished swiftly. Homes were razed. Fathers were taken. Prince Kaelan, the only heir to the throne of Eldoria, walked daily through the courtyards and corridors of the somber kingdom, his eyes quietly collecting every unspoken agony that hung in the air. Unlike his father, his soul trembled at the sight of hollowed cheeks and silent tears. Where Malakar saw submission as triumph, Kaelan saw devastation cloaked in obedience. Though adorned in royal finery and surrounded by luxury, the prince often felt more prisoner than prince, trapped between the blood that bound him to a crown and the empathy that anchored him to the suffering of their people. From a young age, Kaelan had questioned the foundation of his father's rule. While others cowered, he dared to voice his conscience. Time and again, he would enter the throne room, an austere hall lined with flickering torches and echoing with the ghosts of judgment past, and approach the brooding monarch seated high above. With his voice steady but heart racing, Kaelan would implore, "Father, these men and women beneath our banner are not cattle. They are families, neighbors, children who once trusted our name. We cannot hold a kingdom together with chains and screams." But his words fell like snowflakes onto a blazing forge. King Malakar, unmoved, would arch his brow and sneer, his tone laced with ice. "Spare me your softness, boy. Sympathy does not command loyalty. Dread is the only leash that never snaps." His hand would dismiss Kaelan with the finality of a slammed door, the conversation buried before it could breathe. The prince, though young, carried wisdom not found in books or scrolls. His strength was not forged in battle, but in stillness, his ability to feel deeply in a realm ruled by numbness. Yet each refusal, each cruel retort, chipped away at his hope that his father might change. While Malakar ruled with a scepter dipped in terror, Kaelan dreamed of a different legacy, one where honor did not demand brutality and leadership meant protection, not domination. In stolen moments, he walked among villagers in disguise, sharing food, listening to stories, witnessing heartbreak firsthand. Every tale of loss etched itself into his memory like scripture. And with each passing season, Kaelan's quiet resolve grew louder in his heart. If his father would not unshackle Eldoria from darkness, then perhaps the duty would fall to him, whether through diplomacy or defiance. With each passing season, the anguish of Eldoria's people swelled like a rising tide, threatening to drown what little spirit remained. Mothers clutched their hungry infants, fathers buried sons lost to exhaustion, and siblings huddled together at night, their dreams haunted by shadows. The weight of injustice became unbearable, and as hope dimmed, their faith ignited. Desperation drove them not to rebellion, for that meant swift execution, but to the sacred places of old, forgotten by all but the most devout. Crumbling stone altars hidden deep within the whispering forests, once vibrant with incense and offerings, now trembled with a new purpose. Beneath moonlight and rustling leaves, villagers knelt in silence, invoking ancient powers that predated the throne itself. Their collective voice, raw with sorrow, pierced the veil between worlds. They prayed not for mercy, but for reckoning. They didn't ask for deliverance, they demanded it. The heavens, long silent, stirred. One night, under a sky ablaze with starlight and a hush that blanketed the realm, a vision emerged within the flames of a sacred brazier. The oracle, a woman blind since birth yet gifted with divine sight, trembled as the words surged through her trembling lips like thunder echoing from eternity. The end of Malakar shall come not by sword nor rebellion, but through a child yet unborn. A girl. She will rise from despair and become the storm he cannot silence. When word of the prophecy slithered through castle walls and reached the iron ears of the king, terror disguised itself as fury. Malakar, once convinced of his invincibility, now saw enemies in every cradle, threats in every lullaby. The thought that a mere infant, female no less, might someday bring his downfall unhinged something deep within him. He became a man driven not by power, but by panic. And panic, in tyrants, breeds monstrous cruelty. Fueled by his dread, he unleashed a fresh wave of torment upon his already broken realm. Infants were torn from the arms of mothers before they could take their first steps. Entire villages were ransacked under the pretense of purging treachery. Children, especially girls, were seized under cover of darkness, loaded into iron-wheeled carts, and shipped across unknown waters to distant markets. No longer satisfied with mere dominance, Malakar sought to rewrite destiny itself, attempting to smother prophecy in its cradle. His depravity deepened with each passing year, twisting him into something barely human. Where once he ruled with brutal efficiency, now he reigned through chaos, cruelty unraveling into madness. Every action he took, every scream he silenced, only brought him closer to the doom he feared. For no king, no matter how ruthless, can escape the judgment of fate once it has spoken. And somewhere, far from the eyes of the watchful tyrant, the winds began to shift. The stars above Eldoria shimmered with promise. Destiny stirred. The girl would come, not born of privilege but of pain, and when she did, her voice would carry the vengeance of 1,000 prayers unanswered. As time trudged forward, the people of Eldoria weathered agony that no soul should ever endure. Each day was a relentless battle against hunger, loss, and fear. Families vanished without explanation, dreams withered beneath the boots of soldiers, and even laughter became a distant memory. The skies themselves seemed to mourn, casting endless clouds over a land that had forgotten sunlight. Yet, in the quietest corners of the realm, something fragile yet defiant survived: hope. Carried on hushed lips, wrapped in bedtime stories, and whispered beneath blankets, legends of deliverance refused to die. Children grew up listening to the sacred tale, that one day from among them a light would rise. Not a warrior clad in steel, but a girl born under fate's watchful eye, destined to free them all. Far beyond the castle's cruel reach, nestled at the edge of a mist-laced forest, stood a weathered dwelling with walls patched by love, not gold. There, on a storm-kissed evening, a woman named Eldoria cried out in labor, her strength fueled not by comfort, but by determination. She was a midwife's daughter, strong-willed and wise, who had long suspected her role in something far greater than her quiet existence. As the winds howled and lightning painted the night sky, a cry pierced the darkness. Her daughter had arrived. The moment the infant emerged, an astonishing sight unfolded. A serpent, elegant, radiant, and unlike any creature known to Eldoria, slid gently across the floor, wrapping itself around the newborn's tiny form. It did not strike, nor hiss, but watched with eyes that held centuries of secrets. Its scales shimmered with hues that shifted like oil on water, reflecting hidden stars. The midwife gasped, dropping her tools in awe. Eldoria, though stunned, felt no fear. She knew. This was no accident. She named the child Seraphina, a name meaning fiery angel, and the serpent, as if understanding, lifted its head and blinked slowly. Seraphina's small hand reached out, touching its nose without hesitation. In that silent connection, a bond was sealed. Eldoria named the guardian Zephyr, after the wind that heralds change. From that moment on, the serpent never left Seraphina's side. It coiled around her cradle, slithered quietly behind her steps, and seemed to vanish when danger approached, only to reappear when safety returned. Villagers whispered of miracles happening around the child. Crops flourished near her path, injured animals healed overnight, and whenever she laughed, the air seemed lighter. Though Eldoria kept her hidden, word slowly spread. The prophecy had not just been remembered, it had been fulfilled. As Seraphina blossomed into adolescence, the quiet murmur of hope that had once lingered in the margins of village life began to swell into a chorus. Her very presence exuded a strange radiance that seemed to ignite dormant courage in others. With eyes like molten amber and a voice that carried the calm of the wind before a storm, she embodied both gentleness and strength. Unlike others her age, Seraphina did not shrink from sorrow. She wandered barefoot through muddy paths, sat with the grieving, and listened with a heart wide open. She learned not from books, but from the faces of those worn by time, labor, and heartbreak. The people didn't just admire her, they entrusted her with their memories, their pain, their fading dreams. Children followed her through the fields like ducklings, mimicking her laughter and gestures. Elders offered blessings when she passed, their gnarled fingers brushing her shoulder in reverence. Her wisdom belied her youth, and even when she didn't speak, her silence carried meaning. In her, they saw the first bloom of spring after a bitter winter. Many no longer referred to her by name alone but with titles whispered as prayers: Flamebearer, Dawnchild, Whisper of Renewal. Through every trial, Zephyr slithered beside her, vigilant and silent, a living sigil of destiny. The serpent's presence drew awe rather than fear. Its emerald scales glinted with otherworldly light, and its gaze held the weight of forgotten centuries. Wherever they went, a subtle warmth returned to the land. Trees sprouted leaves in dead seasons, wells once dry began to drip. While Seraphina's path rose steadily toward purpose, in the obsidian halls of Malakar's citadel, a different storm brewed. Prince Kaelan, no longer the innocent boy pleading for mercy, had matured into a thoughtful, restless soul. Each act of cruelty committed in his father's name chiseled cracks in his loyalty. The prince disguised himself in tattered garments, slipping past guards under cover of darkness, wandering through lanes drenched in sorrow. He watched children chase shadows, saw women sell heirlooms for crumbs, and heard lullabies that masked weeping. On one such night, under a moon swollen with silver light, he turned a corner and found himself face to face with Seraphina. She stood beneath a lantern's glow, speaking softly to a crippled farmer whose ox had collapsed. Her tone was soothing, her hands gentle, her eyes unwavering. Kaelan froze, not just from surprise, but from recognition. Something ancient stirred within him, as if the universe had shifted imperceptibly. In that instant, without words or explanation, he knew the girl before him was unlike any soul he had ever encountered. And his world would never be the same again. Their encounter seemed orchestrated by fate itself, as if the stars had conspired to bring them together at the precise moment when the world needed hope the most. Kaelan had wandered through the village aimlessly that evening, cloaked in anonymity, haunted by thoughts he could no longer silence. The weight of his father's tyranny pressed against his chest like an immovable stone. Yet amidst the sorrow-stained streets, a sound broke through, the melodic laughter of someone untouched by despair. It rang through the air like birdsong after a storm. Drawn to it instinctively, he turned a corner and saw her. Seraphina stood beneath the boughs of an old tree, surrounded by children spinning in dizzying circles of joy. Her hair caught the setting sun like wildfire, and her smile held no trace of fear. To Kaelan, she seemed almost ethereal, as if molded from hope itself. Watching her interact so effortlessly with the villagers, he felt something stir within him, a feeling long buried beneath years of royal conditioning and suppressed empathy. He stepped closer, uncertain yet compelled, and when she turned to face him, her presence struck him like a jolt. "What brings you such joy in a world drowning in grief?" he asked, his voice low, genuine, lacking the usual arrogance his title carried. She tilted her head, studying him. Her gaze was sharp, unafraid, and lit with quiet fire. "Joy is a rebellion," she said calmly. "It's how we fight back. Darkness wants us hollow. But if we keep laughing, loving, dreaming, we win, even in the smallest ways." Kaelan felt her words carve a path through the walls around his soul. He was mesmerized not just by her beauty, but by the immense strength cloaked within her gentleness. Over the following days, he returned often, under different disguises, not to spy but to listen, to learn. He and Seraphina began to speak more frequently, their conversations spanning everything from childhood memories to philosophies on justice, liberty, and compassion. They debated the future, painted pictures of what Eldoria could become, dared to imagine a kingdom not ruled by fear but nurtured by unity. Kaelan marveled at her clarity, her refusal to be broken. She made the impossible seem within reach, not through grand speeches but through the way she lived. She inspired not by commanding, but by simply being. Her hope was not naive, it was forged in hardship and tempered by understanding. With every shared thought, every stolen hour beneath starlit skies, the bond between them deepened. In Seraphina, Kaelan saw more than a beacon of prophecy. He saw a new beginning, not just for the land or its people, but for himself. For the first time, he imagined a different version of his life, one not bound by royal duty or his father's shadow, but shaped by truth, conviction, and the possibility of redemption. And though neither of them said it aloud, something ancient had awakened, a feeling that stretched beyond friendship. It was the first spark of something rare, something dangerous, and perhaps, something destined. Time moved like a quiet tide, sweeping Seraphina and Kaelan further along the path fate had carved for them. Under the cover of twilight, beneath the whispering leaves of the ancient forest, Seraphina confided in the prince. Her voice, calm but resolute, carried the weight of generations, the burden of a destiny she had not chosen but accepted. She spoke of dreams that were not her own, of signs written in the stars and echoed in sacred whispers. "I am the child the prophecy foretold," she said, her eyes locked with his, unwavering. "The one destined to bring an end to this suffering." Kaelan felt as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He blinked, stunned, the enormity of her confession crashing down upon him like thunder. "You," he whispered, hardly daring to believe. You are the one who holds the power to end my father's dominion." His voice trembled, not out of doubt, but the gravity of what it meant. His entire life had been spent beneath the looming shadow of Malakar, a man both feared and obeyed. And yet, before him stood a young woman, brilliant, brave, and utterly defiant, speaking of revolution as if it were already written in stone. Seraphina gave a solemn nod. "I cannot do this alone," she said, extending her hand as both a plea and a promise. "It will take more than strength. It will require unity, courage, and hearts willing to bleed for freedom." Conflicted, Kaelan turned away, his thoughts a storm of memories and emotions. He saw his childhood flash behind his eyes, moments of loneliness within the castle walls, the cries of villagers echoing beyond its gates, the chill of his father's indifference. Yet now, his heart beat to a different rhythm, one stirred by Seraphina's presence, her vision, her fire. The silence between them stretched, heavy with anticipation, until he turned back and clasped her hand. "Then let it be us," he said, conviction ringing in every syllable. "I will fight at your side. Let the dawn of a new age rise from our defiance." Wordlessly, they began their mission. Beneath the moon's glow, they visited hidden corners of the village, whispering truths into ears long dulled by fear. Elders wept when they heard the prophecy repeated, while the youth, wide-eyed and eager, pledged themselves to the cause. Each spark of belief lit another, until a quiet blaze of determination spread through the broken streets of Eldoria. But evil does not slumber. Within his ironclad fortress, King Malakar sensed unease ripple through his kingdom. Though no voice dared confront him directly, he felt the undercurrents of rebellion like a chill in the air. His spies brought reports, vague accounts of gatherings at night, symbols etched in alleyways, weapons being forged in abandoned barns. Enraged by the thought of insubordination, he unleashed terror upon the land once more. His soldiers swept through villages like vultures, dragging anyone who dared speak out into dungeons that swallowed screams. He tightened his grip, hoping brute force would crush the whispers before they could grow into roars. But Kaelan and Seraphina would not yield. They continued, undeterred, binding the villagers not through promises, but through purpose. Training grounds were carved out of forest clearings, where farmers learned to wield blades, and bakers practiced archery beneath starlit skies. They forged alliances in the shadows, disgruntled knights, merchants tired of extortion, and even old sorcerers who had hidden their craft under years of fear, all joined their ranks. They were no longer isolated souls dreaming of justice. They were a movement, breathing, marching, preparing. Seraphina, clad in simple garments yet carrying herself like royalty, stood at the center of it all. Her presence lifted the spirits of the weary, igniting courage in the broken. Her bond with Zephyr, the twin-snake guardian, gave credence to the prophecy. She was not merely a girl with hope. She was a symbol, a living embodiment of resistance. And by her side stood Kaelan, no longer just the prince torn between two worlds, but a warrior reclaiming his conscience and rewriting his legacy. Together, they wove a plan that would challenge the very heart of tyranny. Their rebellion was no longer a dream. It had become a quiet storm, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the sun set on the eve of the confrontation, Seraphina stood at the edge of the village, her heart pounding with anticipation. Zephyr coiled protectively around her, sensing the tension in the air. Kaelan stood beside her, his presence a source of strength. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm brewing within. "I was born ready," Seraphina replied, determination etched across her face. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for every child stolen from their home, for every life crushed under his rule." As dawn broke, the villagers gathered, armed with makeshift weapons and unwavering resolve. They marched toward the castle, their hearts beating in unison, a chorus of defiance against the darkness that had plagued them for far too long. The castle loomed before them, a symbol of oppression, but they pressed on, fueled by the hope that Seraphina had ignited within them. Inside, Malachar sat upon his throne, a twisted grin spreading across his face as he surveyed his kingdom. He had grown accustomed to power, and the thought of losing it was unfathomable. When the sound of footsteps echoed through the halls, he rose, his eyes narrowing. "Who dares to challenge me?" he roared, his voice reverberating through the castle. The doors burst open, and Seraphina stepped forward, her presence commanding. "I am Seraphina, daughter of the prophecy. Today, we reclaim our kingdom from your tyranny." Malachar's laughter filled the chamber, a cruel sound that sent chills down the spines of those gathered. "You think a mere girl can defeat me? I have crushed men who were stronger than you." But Seraphina stood tall, her heart steady. "Strength lies not in cruelty, but in courage. You have ruled through fear, but today, we stand united against you." The battle that ensued was fierce and chaotic. The villagers fought valiantly, their spirits ignited by the promise of freedom. Kaelan fought alongside them, his heart torn yet resolute. He could not abandon his people, nor could he betray the woman he had come to love. As the clash of steel rang through the castle, Seraphina confronted Malachar. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, time seemed to stand still. "You will pay for the pain you have caused," she declared, her voice unwavering. Malachar sneered, drawing his sword. "You think you can defeat me? I am the king." With a fierce battle cry, Seraphina lunged forward, her heart fueled by the memories of those who had suffered under his reign. Zephyr struck alongside her, a blur of scales and fury, distracting the king just long enough for Seraphina to land a blow. The clash of their swords echoed throughout the chamber, a dance of light and darkness. As the battle raged on, Kaelan fought his way to Seraphina's side, his heart pounding with fear and admiration. "We can do this together," he shouted, his voice filled with determination. With a nod, Seraphina and Kaelan combined their strengths, their movements synchronized as they fought against the embodiment of their suffering. Malachar, realizing the tide was turning, unleashed his fury, but the bond forged between Seraphina and Kaelan proved too strong. With one final strike, Seraphina delivered a blow that sent Malachar crashing to the ground, his reign of terror finally coming to an end. As the dust settled, the villagers erupted in cheers, their hearts filled with joy. The chains of oppression had been shattered, and freedom had returned to Eldoria. Seraphina stood tall, her heart racing with triumph as she looked at Kaelan, who was now by her side, a partner in every sense. In the days that followed, the kingdom began to heal. Seraphina and Kaelan worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost, their love blossoming amidst the ruins of the past. They held festivals to celebrate the return of hope, and the villagers rejoiced, their laughter echoing through the once silent streets. As the seasons changed, so did the kingdom. Seraphina and Kaelan ruled with compassion, their hearts forever intertwined. Together, they established a new era, one where kindness and justice prevailed. The scars of the past would never fully fade, but they served as a reminder of the strength found in unity. And so, the prophecy was fulfilled, not just in the defeat of a wicked king, but in the birth of a new legacy. Seraphina and Kaelan stood as symbols of hope, a testament to the power of love and courage in the face of darkness. Eldoria flourished once more, a realm where dreams could take flight, and the light of a brighter future shone brightly for all to see.